The book came back 38 years late. Inside the front cover, taped to the checkout card pocket, was a photograph, 3 handwritten notes, and a small brass key. The key had a tag, Unit 47, Salem Storage Facility. Records showed the unit had been locked since 1987. No one had opened it. No one had paid the rent. It had just sat there, waiting, for 37 years. The library was Hawthorne Public Library in Salem, Massachusetts, a 2-story brick building on Essex Street, built in 1912, renovated in 1974, staffed by 6 librarians and 2 part-time assistants. The collection was modest: 30,000 books, a small local history section, a reading room with tall windows that faced the street. On September 4, 1986, a woman named Claire Dawson checked out a book. The title was The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud, Dover Thrift Edition, published 1980. Claire was 27, a graduate student at Salem State College, studying psychology. She'd moved to Salem in August 1986, rented a small apartment on Derby Street, and joined the library that same week. Claire signed the checkout card with her name and address. The due date was stamped September 18, 1986. She walked out of the library with the book in her canvas bag. She never returned it. On September 20, 1986, the library sent Claire a notice. The book was overdue, fine, 50 cents. Claire didn't respond. The library sent a second notice on October 1st. Still no response. On October 15th, the library called Claire's apartment. No answer. They called again on October 22nd. The line had been disconnected. On November 3, 1986, Claire's landlord called the Salem Police Department. He said Claire hadn't paid rent in 3 weeks. He'd gone to check on her. The apartment was empty. Her belongings were gone. No forwarding address. The police filed a missing persons report. Claire Dawson, 27, last seen in late September 1986. No known family in Massachusetts. Parents deceased. No siblings. No close friends that anyone could identify. She'd attended classes at Salem State through September 22nd, then stopped showing up. Her professors said she'd been quiet, kept to herself, seemed fine. The police checked bus stations, train stations, hospitals. No record of Claire leaving town. No record of Claire checking into a hospital or morgue. She'd simply vanished. The case went cold by January 1987. Claire Dawson remained on the missing persons list, but active investigations ceased. The library never got the book back. They wrote it off as lost. The fine accumulated to $19.50 before the system capped it. Claire's library card was deactivated. Life went on. 38 years passed. On October 12, 2024, a librarian named Marcus Lang was sorting through the return drop box at Hawthorne Public Library. It was a Monday morning, quiet, a typical autumn day. Marcus had worked at the library for 6 years, handling circulation, cataloging, occasional tech support. He was 31, methodical, liked the routine. Marcus pulled a stack of books from the drop box and scanned them one by one. Most were recent checkouts, mysteries, memoirs, cookbooks. But one book was different. It was old. The cover was faded. The spine cracked. Marcus scanned the barcode. The system beeped. He looked at the screen. The Interpretation of Dreams? Sigmund Freud. Checked out September 4, 1986. Due September 18, 1986. Borrower, Claire Dawson. Marcus stared at the screen. 1986. 38 years overdue. He turned the book over in his hands. It was in decent condition. Worn, but not damaged. Someone had taken care of it. Marcus opened the front cover. Inside, taped to the old checkout card pocket, was a Polaroid photograph. The photo showed a young woman, mid-20s, dark hair, standing in front of a white house. She was smiling, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Below the photo, also taped to the inside cover, were 3 pieces of paper, folded notes, written in blue ink, and below the notes, taped with yellowed Scotch tape, was a small brass key. The key had a paper tag attached with string. The tag read, Unit 47, Salem Storage Facility. Marcus set the book down and called his supervisor, the head librarian, a woman named Linda Torres. Linda came over and looked at the book. She read the checkout date. She looked at the photo, the notes, the key. "This is strange," Linda said. Marcus said, "Should we call the police?" Linda said, "Let me read the notes first." She carefully peeled the tape and unfolded the first note. The handwriting was neat, precise. The note read, "If you're reading this, I'm either dead or gone so far that it doesn't matter. My name is Claire Dawson. I checked out this book in September 1986. I never returned it because I left. I had to leave. Someone was looking for me, and if I stayed, I would have ended up like the others. I don't know who you are, or when you're reading this, but if you care, follow the key. Unit 47. Everything I couldn't say is in there." Linda read the note twice. Then she unfolded the second note. "I rented the storage unit in October 1986. A week before I left. I paid 5 years in advance. Cash, no questions. I don't know if the facility is still there. I don't know if the unit is still locked. But if it is, and if you open it, you'll understand why I disappeared." Linda unfolded the third note. It was shorter. It read, "His name was Thomas Reed. He was a professor. He said he was helping me. He wasn't. If you find this, check the unit, and then check the missing persons reports from 1986 to 1987. You'll see the pattern." Linda looked at Marcus. "We need to call the police." Marcus called the Salem Police Department. A detective named Sarah Kim arrived at the library 20 minutes later. Linda showed her the book, the photo, the notes, the key. Sarah photographed everything. She read the notes 3 times. Sarah said, "Who's Claire Dawson?" Linda pulled up the library's old records. "Claire Dawson, registered borrower, September 1986. Last known address 42 Derby Street, apartment 3. Sarah ran the name through the police database. Claire Dawson, reported missing November 1986. Case status, open, inactive." Sarah said, "She's been on the missing persons list for 38 years. Marcus said, "So she's been gone this whole time? And now the book just shows up?" Sarah said, "Someone returned it. Probably mailed it. Let me check with the post office." Sarah called the Salem post office. She spoke to the postmaster. He checked the records. On October 10, 2024, a package had been delivered to Hawthorne Public Library. No return address, postmarked from Boston, paid with cash at a self-service kiosk. No way to trace the sender. Sarah returned to the library. She said the book was mailed from Boston 2 days ago. Whoever sent it didn't want to be identified. Linda said, "What about the storage unit?" Sarah said, "I'll check it out." Sarah drove to Salem Storage Facility on Highland Avenue. It was a low, 1-story building painted beige, with rows of garage-style units. The office was in the front. Sarah walked in and spoke to the manager, a man named Ed Carlson. Ed was 63, had managed the facility since 1995. Sarah showed Ed the key and the tag. Ed checked his records. Unit 47 had been rented in October 1986 by someone named C. Dawson. 5 years paid in advance. After the 5 years expired in 1991, the unit should have been cleared out. But there was a note in the file. Unclaimed, no contact info. Unit remains locked per policy. Ed said, "We have a policy. If someone stops paying rent and doesn't respond to notices, we're supposed to auction off the contents. But in the late 80s and early 90s we were disorganized. Some units just got forgotten. Unit 47 is one of them. It's been locked since 1991. No one's touched it. Sarah said, "Can you open it?" Ed said, "Legally, I need a court order to open an abandoned unit." Sarah said, "This is part of a missing persons investigation. I'll get the order." Sarah filed for a court order that afternoon. The order was granted on October 14th. On October 15th, Sarah returned to the storage facility with Ed Carlson and a forensic technician named Mark Torres. Ed unlocked Unit 47. The lock was rusted, the hinges stiff. The door creaked open. Inside was dark. Mark shone a flashlight. The unit was small, 10 feet by 10 feet. The walls were concrete. The floor was dusty. In the center of the unit was a single cardboard box, sealed with packing tape. Sarah photographed the box, then carefully lifted it out. She placed it on the ground outside the unit and cut the tape. Inside the box were 5 items. The first item was a journal, a spiral-bound notebook, about 100 pages, filled with handwriting. Sarah flipped through it. The entries were dated from August 1986 to October 1986. The handwriting matched the notes in the book. The second item was a stack of newspaper clippings. Sarah counted 12 articles, all from Massachusetts newspapers, all from 1985 to 1986. The headlines were variations on a theme: Salem State student missing, young woman disappears after class, police search for missing graduate student. The third item was a folder containing printed documents, police reports, university records, correspondence. Sarah flipped through them. They were all related to missing women. 4 women, all in their 20s, all students or recent graduates, all reported missing between January 1985 and August 1986. The fourth item was a cassette tape. The label read, "Recorded October 3rd, 1986. My statement." The fifth item was a photograph. It showed a man, mid-40s, gray hair, glasses, standing in front of a university building. On the back, someone had written Thomas Reed, professor of psychology, Salem State College. Sarah bagged all the items as evidence. She returned to the police station and called a meeting with the cold case unit. On October 16th, the cold case detective, a man named David Ortega, listened to the cassette tape. The recording was poor quality, but the voice was clear. A young woman, speaking carefully, as if reading from notes. "My name is Claire Dawson. It's October 3rd, 1986. I'm recording this because I don't think I'll be able to tell this story in person. I came to Salem in August to start graduate school. I enrolled in Professor Thomas Reed's seminar on cognitive psychology. He seemed kind, supportive. He offered to mentor me. I said yes. Over the next 6 weeks, I met with him regularly. He asked me personal questions about my family, my past, my fears. I thought he was just being thorough. But then I found out about the others. 4 women, all students, all in his classes, all disappeared between 1985 and 1986. I started asking questions. I went to the library and looked up the cases. I talked to other students. I realized they all fit a pattern. Young, isolated, no close family, just like me. I confronted Professor Reed on September 22nd. I told him I knew. He didn't deny it. He said I was smart. He said I'd figured it out. He said I had 2 choices: leave Salem and never come back, or end up like the others. I chose to leave. I packed everything that night. I rented a storage unit and put this box inside. I'm leaving tomorrow. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm not staying here. If you're listening to this, it means someone found the book. Please check the missing persons cases. Please find out what happened to those women. And please stop him." The tape ended. David sat in silence. Then he pulled the folder of missing persons cases and reviewed them. 4 women. Amy Cross, 23, missing January 1985. Rachel Voss, 25, missing June 1985. Linda Martinez, 24, missing February 1986. Emily Thornton, 22, missing August 1986. All students at Salem State, all enrolled in psychology classes, all reported missing after attending evening classes or meeting with professors. David checked the university records. Amy Cross had been enrolled in Thomas Reed's Introduction to Psychology course in fall 1984. Rachel Voss had been in his behavioral psychology seminar in spring 1985. Linda Martinez had taken his cognitive development class in fall 1985. Emily Thornton had been in his advanced research methods course in summer 1986. David called Salem State College. He spoke to the registrar. He asked about Thomas Reed. The registrar said Thomas Reed had been a professor in the psychology department from 1980 to 1987. He'd resigned abruptly in November 1987. No forwarding address. The registrar didn't know where he'd gone. David requested personnel files. Salem State sent them on October 18. David reviewed Thomas Reed's employment history. Born 1941. PhD in psychology from Boston University. 1975. Hired by Salem State in 1980. Taught undergraduate and graduate courses. No disciplinary actions on file. Glowing reviews from students. Resigned November 15, 1987, citing personal reasons. David ran Thomas Reed's name through state and federal databases. He found a match. Thomas Eugene Reed, born March 14, 1941, last known address in Salem, Massachusetts. No criminal record. No arrests, no traffic violations, no death certificate, no record of him after 1987. David called the FBI. On October 20th, an agent named Rebecca Hale was assigned to the case. Rebecca reviewed the evidence, the journal, the tape, the newspaper clippings, the missing persons reports. She requested forensic analysis of the storage unit box. The forensic team found fingerprints on the journal and the cassette tape. The prints matched Claire Dawson's prints from her 1986 driver's license. They found no other prints. No DNA, no trace evidence linking Thomas Reed to the box. Rebecca interviewed former colleagues of Thomas Reed. Most were retired or had left Salem State. One professor, a woman named Dr. Ellen Morris, remembered Thomas. She said he'd been charming, well-liked, but also private. She said he'd left suddenly in 1987, and no one had heard from him since. Rebecca asked if Dr. Morris remembered any of the missing students. Dr. Morris said she did. She said the disappearances had been devastating. She said the police had investigated, but no leads were found. She said the cases had eventually gone cold. Rebecca asked if anyone had suspected Thomas. Dr. Morris hesitated. Then she said, "Not officially, but some of us wondered. He was always so interested in vulnerable students. He'd offer to mentor them, spend extra time with them. At the time, it seemed like he was just being a good teacher. But after the fourth student disappeared, a few of us started talking. We thought about reporting it, but we had no evidence, just a bad feeling." Rebecca asked why no one had come forward. Dr. Morris said, "Because Thomas left before we could. He resigned in November 1987. By the time we realized the pattern, he was gone." Rebecca requested a search for Thomas Reed's whereabouts. The FBI tracked his Social Security number. No activity after 1987. No tax returns filed. No credit card use. No employment records. Thomas Reed had vanished. Rebecca issued a federal warrant on October 25th. Thomas Reed was wanted for questioning in connection with 4 disappearances. The FBI distributed his photo. Age progressed to 83, assuming he was still alive. They offered a reward for information. On November 2nd, a woman in Portland, Maine, called the FBI tip line. She said a man matching Thomas Reed's description had been living in her apartment building since the early 1990s. He went by the name Tom Richards. He was quiet, kept to himself, paid his rent in cash. The FBI sent agents to Portland on November 3rd. They knocked on Tom Richards' door. An elderly man answered. He was 83, gray-haired, walked with a cane. The agents showed him a photo of Thomas Reed from 1987. The man stared at the photo. Then he said, "That's me." The agents arrested him. They brought him to the Portland field office. Rebecca Hale flew to Portland and interviewed him on November 4th. Thomas Reed, now calling himself Tom Richards, sat across from Rebecca and said nothing for 20 minutes. Then he said, "I knew someone would find that book eventually." Rebecca said, "Did you return it?" Thomas nodded. "I saw Claire's obituary. She died in July. Cancer. I thought, after all these years, it didn't matter anymore. So I mailed the book back. I thought, maybe it would just get shelved. I didn't think anyone would care." Rebecca said, "Claire Dawson is dead?" Thomas said, "She died in Oregon. I found her obituary online. She'd been living there since 1987, under a different name." Rebecca said, "How did you know her name?" Thomas said, "I've been keeping track of all of them." Rebecca said, "The missing women?" Thomas nodded. Rebecca said, "Did you kill them?" Thomas was silent for a long time. Then he said, "No, I didn't kill anyone." Rebecca said, "Then what happened to them?" Thomas said, "They left, just like Claire. I told them to leave. I told them if they stayed, they'd end up in trouble, so they left." Rebecca said, "Why?" Thomas said, "Because I was trying to help them." Rebecca said, "By threatening them?" Thomas said, "By warning them." There was someone else, another professor. He was targeting students, young women, isolated, vulnerable. I saw the pattern. I tried to warn them, but no one believed me. So I told them to leave, to disappear, to start over somewhere safe. Rebecca said, "Who was this other professor?" Thomas said, "His name was Michael Grant. He taught sociology. He died in 1988, heart attack." Rebecca checked the records. Michael Grant, professor of sociology at Salem State, 1978, 1988, died February 12, 1988, age 47, cause of death, cardiac arrest. Rebecca said, "If Michael Grant was the threat, why did you disappear?" Thomas said, "Because no one believed me. I went to the administration. I went to the police. I told them Michael was dangerous. They said I was paranoid. They said I had no evidence. After Michael died, I realized I couldn't stay. People thought I was crazy. So I left." Rebecca said, "And the women? Where are they?" Thomas said, "I don't know. I told them to disappear, to change their names, to never come back. I don't know if they're alive or dead. I just know I tried to save them." Rebecca reviewed Thomas's statement with David Ortega and Sarah Kim. They tracked down the 4 missing women. It took 3 weeks. They found Amy Cross living in Seattle, under the name Amy Morrison. She'd been working as a social worker since 1986. They found Rachel Voss in Denver, calling herself Rachel Palmer, running a small bookstore. They found Linda Martinez in Albuquerque, going by Linda Chavez, teaching elementary school. They found Emily Thornton in San Diego, using the name Emily Shaw, working as a nurse. All 4 women confirmed Thomas Reed's story. They said Thomas had warned them about Michael Grant. They said Michael had been obsessive, controlling, dangerous. They said Thomas had helped them leave, given them money, advice, a way out. They said they'd been hiding ever since, too afraid to come back. On November 28th, Rebecca held a press conference. She said Thomas Reed had not killed anyone. He'd helped 4 women escape a dangerous situation. She said the real threat, Michael Grant, had died in 1988. She said the case was closed. But Claire Dawson's story didn't end there. On December 3rd, a woman named Sarah Chen called the Salem Police Department. She said she was Claire Dawson's friend. They'd met in Oregon in 1988. Claire had told her everything about Thomas Reed, about Michael Grant, about why she'd disappeared. Sarah said Claire had lived under the name Claire Morrison for 37 years. She'd never married. She'd worked as a librarian. She'd died of pancreatic cancer on July 14, 2024. Sarah said Claire had written a letter before she died. She'd asked Sarah to mail the book back to Salem after she was gone. She'd wanted someone to know the truth. Sarah sent the letter to Rebecca Hale. Rebecca read it and shared it with David and Sarah Kim. The letter, dated June 30, 2024, read, "My name is Claire Dawson. I left Salem in October 1986 because I was afraid. Professor Thomas Reed told me to leave. He said if I stayed, I'd end up like the others. I believed him. I packed my things and left. I've been hiding ever since. I changed my name. I built a new life, but I've carried the weight of that choice for 37 years. I don't know if I made the right decision. I don't know if Thomas was a hero or a manipulator. I don't know if Michael Grant was really the threat, or if Thomas was. All I know is that I survived, and the others survived, and maybe that's enough. I'm dying now. Cancer. I have a few months left. I want someone to know what happened. I want someone to understand why I disappeared. So I'm sending the book back. Inside are the notes, the key, the storage unit, everything I couldn't say when I left. I hope someone finds it. I hope someone cares, and I hope somehow it helps." The letter ended there. Rebecca closed the file on December 10, 2024. Thomas Reed was released from custody. He returned to Portland and resumed his quiet life. The 4 women he'd helped, Amy, Rachel, Linda, and Emily, spoke briefly to the press, thanking Thomas for saving their lives. Then they disappeared again, back into their new identities. Claire Dawson's story was covered by local news outlets for a week. Then it faded. The book, The Interpretation of Dreams, was returned to the Hawthorne Public Library's collection. Marcus Lang shelved it in the psychology section. It's still there today, available for checkout. Inside the front cover, where the photo and notes used to be, there's now a small book plate. It reads, "In memory of Claire Dawson, 1959-2024. She returned this book 38 years late. Sometimes the truth takes time." If you had to choose between staying and facing danger, or disappearing and living in hiding, what would you do?